Remove this center cap, use a 22mm socket, and take these little caps off. Just do it gently so you don't break them. Take that off. Now use the same socket, take the lug nuts off. Remove the wheel. Now remove the caliper. Use an 18mm socket. Remove these two bolts. Now slide the caliper off. If you need to, use a screwdriver. Just pry it out. You can always compress the piston a little bit. And it's easier to come off. Slide that off. Use a caliper hanger and just find a place to hang it from so that there's no tension on the brake hose. Take the brake pads off, just slide them out. Take these two caliper bracket bolts out. Use a 21mm socket. And slide the caliper bracket back and off the rotor. Now we'll take the rotor off. You can slide it right off. If it's stuck on there, you can take a hammer and just hammer in between where the studs are, and just be careful not to hit the studs. And just slide it off. Take the axle nut off. Use a 36mm socket. There's a washer right here, take that off as well. Take a large punch and just in the center of the axle, just give it a tap, make sure it moves. It looks like this one's loose, so that's good. I'm just gonna use some rust penetrant on the studs on the back, on the bolts. Let that soak. Remove the ABS wire or the wheel speed sensor wire. Just take some pliers, some needle nose pliers. Take this off here. Normally this is positioned in this position, but this one was backwards. And then there's a connector right here, or retainer. You can use a screwdriver. Pop this open. Sometimes it's easier to reuse the old retainer. There's another one over here. Just use a screwdriver, pop that one out. And the connector up here. Just disconnect the connector. And slide it out. From the back side of the knuckle, there's 4 bolts. There's 2 on this side and 2 on the front side. Use a 15mm socket. Remove those bolts. With everything loose, now just take a hammer. You could try using a slide hammer. Sometimes that's a little bit difficult. And just hammer it off from the back side. And slide it right off. You can clean this up a little bit. Use some brake parts cleaner. And if it's real rusty, get a wire brush and just try to clean it up a little. This one's not too bad. Just gonna take a thin coat of anti-seize and just cover this area, just where the bearing's gonna sit. Inside there and on the outside. Now take the new hub. If there was a shield on here, replace that shield. This vehicle didn't have one. And just slide this in position. Make sure the sensor is faced up and don't crush the wire. Put the bolts back in. Get them all started before you tighten them down. Now torque these bolts to 133 foot-pounds. Put the washer on and the nut. Take a pry bar and go in between the lug studs, and we're going to tighten this down, the axle nut, to 177 foot-pounds. That's good. The reason why you put the pry bar there is the hub would just start spinning if you didn't put that there. Now take the wheel speed sensor harness and slide this in position right here, just like that. And this one, I can always take this clip off and reuse the old one because it's still attached to the upper control arm. Or you can slide that one out as well. Just sometimes those break when taking them out. It's gonna go right into there, just like that, and lock it down. Slide the harness up here. There's a hole where this retainer can go. Just find where that's located. And it's going to go right there. And take the connector from up top and plug it in. And there's a retainer on this as well. If you can find where that retainer goes on the back, there's a hole, and slide it in. Take some anti-seize and just put a nice thin coat on the hub, just where the rotor is going to meet the surface. That's good. Take the rotor. First, put the rotor on backwards. Take some brake parts cleaner. Clean the back side of the rotor. Use a rag. Wipe it off. Now flip the rotor around. And do the same on the front side. To make it a little easier when installing, you can take one of the lug nuts and just put it on backwards. That way the rotor's not flopping all around, so that's good. Slide the brake caliper bracket in position. Take the bolts. If you'd like, put some thread lock adhesive on these bolts. Now torque these bolts to 221 foot-pounds. Take the brake pads, the one with the squealers or the brake warning indicators is going to go on the outside. The one with both, just slide that in position. And the one with only one is going to go on the bottom on the inside. Take the caliper, make sure the hose is not twisted, and slide it over the brake pads. The brake caliper bolts and line them up. Get them started. Torque these bolts to 80 foot-pounds. At this point, you can take this Lug nut off. And put the wheel back on. Put the lug nuts on. Torque these lug nuts to 140 foot-pounds in a cross pattern so that you tighten the wheel down evenly. And just go around again, double check. That's good. Put the cap back on, take a socket, and do this by hand. You don't want to strip these out. Just tighten them down.